I'm excited to kind of read this with you. Something that I've had for a long time. The St. George and the Dragon. And like I said, a lot of artwork, a lot of creative drawing, and beautiful illustrations that I think are really enjoyable to look at and to see. It's like every part of this book is detailed and created in a very meaningful and beautiful way. And I haven't read this book in a long time, so I'm excited. Okay, so this is the first page. And I'm gonna go ahead and try to read this in a way that also honors the artwork. In the days when monsters and giants and fairy folk lived in England, a noble knight was riding across a plain. He wore heavy armor and carried an ancient silver shield marked with a red cross. It was dented with the blows of many battles fought long ago by other brave knights. The Red Cross Knight had never yet faced a foe and did not even know his name or where he had been born. But now he was bound on a great adventure, sent by the Queen of the Fairies to try his young strength against a deadly enemy. A dragon grim and horrible. Beside him, on a little white donkey, rode a princess leading a white lamb, and behind her came a dwarf carrying a small bundle of food. The lady's lovely face was veiled, and her shoulders were covered with a black cloak, as if she had a hidden sorrow in her heart. Her name was Una. Alright, and then the next page here. Again, beautiful artwork. The dreadful dragon was the cause of her sorrow. He was laying waste to her land, so that many frightened people had left their homes and ran away. Others had shut themselves inside the walls of a castle with Una's father and mother, the king and queen of the country. But Una had set out alone from the safety of the castle walls to look for a champion who would face the terrible dragon. She had traveled a long, long way before she found the Red Cross Knight. Like a sailor long at sea under stormy winds and fierce sun, who begins to whistle merrily when he sees land, so Una was thankful. Now the travelers rode together through wild woods and wilderness, parallels and dangers towards Una's kingdom. The path they had to follow was straight and narrow, but not easy to see. Sometimes the Red Cross Knight rode too far ahead, and Una Una by his side, fearful and faithful. No monster or giant could stand before the knight's bright sword. I like that idea, that she would guide him when he would be lost. That's nice. And then we have the next picture, which I like a lot. After many days, the path became thorny and led up a steep hillside, where a good old hermit lived in a little house by himself. While Una rested, the Red Cross Knight climbed with the hermit to the top of the hill and looked out across the valley. There against the evening sky they saw a mountain top that touched the highest heavens. It was crowned with a glorious palace, which is my favorite part of this picture. Sparkling like stars encircled with walls and towers of pearls and precious stones. Joyful angels were coming and going between heaven and the high city. Then the Red Cross King Knight, saw that a little path led up the distant mountain to the city. And he said, I thought that the fairest palace in the world was the Crystal Tower in the city of the fair queen. Now I see a palace far more lovely. Una and I should go there at once. But the old hermit said, the fairy queen has sent you to do brave deeds in this world. That high city that you see is in another world. Before you climb the path to it and hang your shield on its wall, go down into the valley and fight the dragon that you were sent to fight. And here we have like a little journey scene. It is time for me to tell you that you were not born of fairy folk, but of English earth. The fairies stole you away as a baby while you slept in your cradle. They hid you in a farmer's field where a plowman found you. He called you George, which means plow the earth and fight the good fight. For you were born to be England's friend and patron saint, St. George of merry England. Then George the Red Cross Knight returned to Una. When morning came, they went together down into the valley. They rode through farmlands where men and women working in the fields looked up and cheered because a champion had come to fight the dragon. And children clapped their hands to see the brave knight and the lovely lady ride by. Now we have come to my own country, said Una. Be on your guard. See, there in the city, and the great brass tower that my parents built, strong enough to stand against the brassy scaled dragon. There, my father and mother, looking out from the walls, and the watchman stands at the top, waiting to call out the good news if help is coming. And here we have the dragon scene. Then they heard a hideous roaring that filled the air with terror and seemed to shake the ground. The dreadful dragon lay stretched on the sunny side of a great hill, like a great hill himself. And when he saw the knight's armor glistening in the sunlight, he came eagerly to battle. The knight bade his lady stand apart out of danger, to watch the fight while the beast drew near, half flying, half running. His great side made a wide shadow under his huge body as a mountain casts a shadow on a valley. He reared high, monstrous, horrible, and vast. dragon's wings stretched out like two sails when the wind fills them. The clouds fled before him. His huge long tail sparkled red and black, wound in 100 folds over his scaly back, and swept the land behind him for almost half a mile. In his tail's end, two sharp stings were fixed, but sharper still were his cruel claws. Whatever he touched or drew within those claws was in deadly danger. His head was more hideous than tongue can tell, for his deep jaws gaped wide, showing 3 rows of iron teeth ready to devour his prey. A cloud of smothering smoke and burning sulphur poured from his throat, filling the air with its stench. His blazing eyes, flaming with rage, glared out from deep in his head. So he came toward the knight, raising his speckled breast, clashing his scales as he leaped to greet his newest victim. Okay, and so this next page here I like. There's a lot more movement, I think, from the dragon here. But the knight on horseback fiercely rode at the dragon with all his might, and crouched and coached his spear. But as they passed the point steel, glanced off the dragon's hard hide. The wrathful beast, surprised at the strength of the blow, turned quickly, and passing the knight again, brushed him with his long tail, so that the horse and man fell to the ground. Once more the Red Cross Knight mounted and attacked the dragon, once more in vain, yet the beast had never before felt such a mighty stroke from the hand of any man, and he was furious for revenge. With his waving wings spread wide, he lifted himself high from the ground, then stooping low, snatched up both horse and man to carry them away. High above the plain he bore them, as far as a bow can shoot an arrow. But even then the knight still struggled until the monster was forced to lower his paws, so that both horse and rider fought free. With the strength of 3 men, again the knight struck. The spear glanced off scaly neck, but it pierced the dragon's left wing, spread broad above him, and the beast roared like a raging sea in the winter storm. Furious, he snatched the spear in his claws and broke it off, throwing forth flames of fire from his nostrils. Then he hurled his hideous tail about and wrapped it around the legs of the horse until, striving to loose the knot, the horse threw its rider to the ground. Oh no. Quickly the knight rose. He drew his sharp sword and struck the dragon's head so fiercely that it seemed nothing could withstand the blow. The dragon's crest was too hard to take a cut, but he wanted no more such blows. He tried to fly away and could not because of his wounded wing. Loudly he bellowed, the like was never heard before, and from his body, like a wide devouring oven, sent a flame of fire that scorched the knight's face, and saw that it was true, he ordered the castle's great brass gates to be opened, so that the tidings of peace and joy might spread through all of the land. Trumpets sounded the news that the great beast had fallen. Then the king and queen came out of the city with all of their nobles to meet the Red Cross King. Tall young men led the way carrying laurel branches to lay at the heroes' feet. Pretty girls wore wreaths of flowers and made music on tambourines. The children came dancing, laughing, and singing. With a crown of flowers for Una, they gazed in wonder at the victorious knight. And I like how it's got this beautiful, celebration here. When the people saw where the dead dragon lay, they dared not come near it to touch him. Some ran away and some pretended not to be afraid. One said the dragon might still be alive. One said he saw fire in the eyes. Another said the eyes were moving. Oh, when a foolish child ran forward to touch the dragon's claws, his mother scolded him. How can I tell, she said, those claws might scratch my son, or tear his tender hand. At last, some of the bolder men began to measure the dragon to prove how many acres his body covered. The old king embraced and kissed his daughter. He gave gifts of gold and ivory and 1,000 things to the dragon slayer. But the knight told the king never to forget the poor people and give the rich gifts to them. Then back to the palace all the people went, still singing, to feast and to hear the story of the knight's adventures with Una. When the tale ended, the king said, "Never did living man sail through such a sea of deadly dangers since you are now safely come to shore. Stay here and live happily ever after. You have earned your rest." But the brave knight answered, "No, my lord, I have sworn to give knight service to the fairy for 6 years. Until then I cannot rest." The king said, "I have promised that the dragon slayer should have Una for his wife, and be king after me. If you love each other, my daughter is yours now. My kingdom shall be yours when you have done your service to the fairy queen and returned to us." Then he called Una, who came, no longer wearing her black cloak and her veil, but dressed in lily-white gown that shimmered like silver. Never had the knight seen her so beautiful. Whenever he looked at the brightness of her sunshiny face, his heart melted with pleasure. That's so cute. So Una and the Red Cross Knight, were married and lived together joyfully. But the knight did not forget his promise to serve the fairy queen, and when she called him to service, he rode for brave adventures, until at last he earned his name, St. George of Merry England. Now, that is how it is when jolly sailors come into a quiet harbor. They unload their cargo, mend ship, and take on fresh supplies. Then away they sail on another long voyage, while we are left on shore, waving goodbye and wishing them Godspeed. And that is the end. I like the little back cover and like the writer. And of course the front is a little damaged, but again, this is an older book. some